What does he say in our top stories? President Barrow expresses gratitude to Gambians for their sacrifice in ridding of the country dictatorship, and this was contained in the president's New Year message. Church leaders dilate on various topical issues as they address the flock on the eve of a new year. Liberia's president-elect George Weah set to be sworn in on January 15th. Authorities in Somalia intensify the war against the Al-Shabaab group, but can President Farmajo's government deliver a knockout blow against the insurgent group? These plus other stories will come up in just a moment. Stay tuned. President His Excellency Adama Barrow has returned gratitude to Gambians for the role they play in reclaiming the country from the clutches of dictatorship. President Barrow said this during a televised statement marking the dawn of a new year. The Gambian leader also reiterated his government's readiness to undertake the needed reforms to help build a new Gambia. Here's an excerpt.
When you elected me as the president of this beautiful country, it was no mistake that the task ahead of me is not only challenging, but also huge and demanding. However, never in my mind have I doubted our great potentials to rebuild our country. We have the human resources comprising of talented, youthful population, as well as the geographical advantage to make this great country a force to reckon with in the sub-region. That is my belief, and it is anchored on the fact that I have confidence in my administration, but more so in you Gambians, to collectively transform our economy, deepen our democracy and rule of law. In the face of a commanding resistance, you must be applauded for taking your country back from the dictatorship that far too long strangled our country, suppressed our potentials to grow, dwarf our spirit and confidence to compete on the global stage. This is not just an incredible feat, but a clear manifestation that with the collective efforts and sacrifice of Gambians here and abroad, no challenge facing our country is impossible for us to handle. When you elected me as the president of this beautiful country,
text of that address immediately after this newscast. Meanwhile, the heads of the various Christian denominations have delivered sermons on the eve of the New Year. The Bishop of Banjul, Robert Patrick Ellison, reflected on the state of misery afflicting war-ravaged communities.
This year, we also celebrate the year for the World Day of the Poor, which was launched by Pope Francis in Rome on the 19th day of November this year. The aim of this is to appeal to the consciences of believers, sensitizing them to the many cries of the poor all over the world. The motto chosen for this year is love not in word, but in deed. It has been chosen in the light of the Pope's concern for the future of our world in which we all live, or should live, as one human family. Pope Francis recently visited Myanmar and Bangladesh, two countries, which shocked him to find that there is a group of human beings which seem to belong to no land whatever in this world. What discouraged him most was that he returned to Rome feeling helpless.
That was Bishop Robert Patrick Ellison there. In her New Year message, the presiding bishop of the Gambia Methodist Church, the Most Reverend Hannah Caroline Falheim, called more support for the needy. The venerable religious leader also urged Gambians to do more to build a prosperous nation.
Present circumstances and environments must not stop us from thanking God. Events of nations today, and no matter the difficulties we face, must not stop us thanking God. This new year, let us respect the vulnerable and the needy. Let us do something productive to help the country. We can all work together to make a brighter future for others. We too, like God, must love each other and help each other. Let us pray for the Gambia and give God thanks for all who live and work here. The psalmist continues to bless and praise the Lord because He is the God who heals all our diseases. This does not mean that we never become sick, but it does mean that God is always with us in our time of need.
Still on New Year messages, the Vicar General and Dean of the Anglican Cathedral of Banjul, Very Reverend James Sigismund Cole, reflected on the events of the past year. Let's take a listen.
As we draw the curtain on the year 2017, we cannot ignore the uncertainty, turbulence, and panic that seized our nation at this time last year. Some of us had to seek refuge in neighboring Senegal, Guinea-Conakry, Guinea-Bissau, and Sierra Leone, whilst others went to Europe and the Americas. The rest of us who braved it out were in utter distress. But when we called on the Most High God in our time of trouble, He heard our cry and came to our rescue. He snatched the Gambia from the sting of civil war. This is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our sight. Psalm 118, verse 23. The challenge brought us together instead of dividing us. We determined to put God first, so He redeemed us to the extent that we can celebrate the Christmastide in peace this time.
And we'll take a look at all the news now, where the Minister of the Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources has presided over the opening ceremony of the validation of the supplementary policy document on the agriculture and natural resources. Khadija Tijalo tells us more.
The document is designed to assist and guide government through the responsible ministries to effectively coordinate and enhance synergy between the relevant technical institutions under their purview.
Namely the Department of Agriculture, Agricultural Services, Department of Livestock Services, Department of Fisheries, Department of Forestry, the National Environment Agency, Department of Parks and Wildlife Management, and the Department of Water Resources. The key policy focus is therefore to build both the capabilities and capacities of these institutions, and by so doing also build the capacity of the local and regional stakeholders and actors who are directly or indirectly impacted by this policy and whose involvement in its implementation cannot be and should not be underestimated.
The policy document Minister Diba went on was developed through participatory consultative processes from national level to the grassroots.
Therefore, I challenge you all to ensure that this supplementary policy clearly addresses and strategically aligns to the changing social, economic, and political condition of this country, and make sure that the policy over the time keeps pace with the changing needs of our population.
The Food and Agriculture Organization country representative held the leadership for its commitment in the preparation of an important document that is expected to enhance productivity.
The recognition that we have here is that sustainable agricultural development is not possible if we're not also talking about forests, we're not talking about water, we're not talking about fisheries. If we are not talking about the natural resources sector, the environment as a whole, it is not possible to conceive of a realistic, sustainable agriculture. So agriculture and natural resources, as we know, remain the bedrock of the development of the Gambia.
The various participants are expected to critically review and provide valuable inputs which will be incorporated in the validation of this important policy document aimed at attaining food security. Khadijatu Diallo, reporting for GRTS News.
Forestry officials have inaugurated the Badara Fai Forest Park in Busura village, the latest addition to the country's forest reserve. The woodland is the result of a community-based green initiative aimed at preserving the Gambia's biodiversity. Haji Sumundu has the details.
Speaking at the event, the National Assembly member for Brikama South, Lamin Sane, called on community to protect the forest from bushfire. He said the grasses are already dry and any outbreak of fire will seriously damage the forest.
If you look at the forest, there are a lot of there are a lot of benefit, especially in the area of cooking our foods we eat in this country. So therefore, if we are going to ban all of them, we need a substitution that can take care of the community. That is why we have not fully agreed totally with the bill, but it's already in progress. Notwithstanding, I just want us to look at the forest. When you talk of forest, the benefits from the forest cannot be overemphasized. We can be talking about it up to tomorrow.
Honorable Sane also called for massive reforestation, saying the Gambia is very vulnerable to the effect of climate change.
Today marks a very important day because it is the planning stage where you are going to develop a strategy that is going to manage and protect this particular community for 5 good years. So that is very, very important. And I believe all the stakeholders are involved with your technocrats from the forestry department. So therefore, you cannot agree on something that this is going to be preserved purposely up to 5 years. Somebody may come with a counter ideology that we want to cut some trees. That should not be encouraged. And he rightly said, faction growing in the committee is a problem. And there is one interesting thing we need to understand. When you talk of a community or a society like this particular committee, we have carriers, we have passengers. There are few people that sacrifice to their extreme length in order to make sure that the committee keep moving.
The chairman Brikama Area Council Bakari Saibo Sane noted that handling and processing of forest resources require specific skills.
Forestry is one of the most important assets of any country. That forest management is something that is key in our development. That forest management or forestry in itself is key in agriculture and all other areas as far as the community is concerned.
The Alcalo of Busirapa, Aliu Fai, also called on community to safeguard the forest and its resources. Reporting for GRTS News, I am Haji Sumbuno.
And that takes us to our first break, but we'll be back with news and sports right after. Just stay tuned.
Carry your bank everywhere you go with the GT Bank Gambia mobile app. Take control of your account anytime, anywhere with ease and security. Do your banking the smart way with the GT Bank Gambia mobile app. Check your account balance, transfer funds, buy now with cash power and mobile credit, withdraw money from our ATM and POS, and pay your bills, request for a Verve card or Visa card, check your Forex rates, and do so much more in just a few steps. Download the GT Bank Gambia mobile app today from Google Play Store or Apple Store. Do your banking the smart way. Do your banking now with the GT Bank Gambia mobile app. Terms and conditions apply. GT Bank, wouldn't you rather bank with us?
2018. The Proteas prepared for their upcoming fixture with an emphatic win over Zimbabwe. South Africa recorded an innings and 120-run victory. And this was the continent's first ever day-night test match in Port Elizabeth, with the 4-day test only lasting 2 days. CS Du Plessis has more.
The 4-day test match lasted only 907 deliveries and wasn't the contest the former #1 ranked team in test cricket had hoped for. Yet it provided the squad, minus captain Faf du Plessis, who was missing due to injury, with an opportunity to dust off the test arena cobwebs and get some game time ahead of the upcoming series against the world's top side, India.
Some of the guys got really nice results, some wickets that you can't buy in the net, so I think all in all pretty good outing for us. Obviously we'd like to get out there and still work hard before the Indian series, but I was pretty happy with the 2 days.
Zimbabwe's resistance proved futile in the windy city as they were blown away by a rampant Proteas bowling lineup. But with limited opportunities to play test cricket against quality opposition, the men from north of the Limpopo would have been satisfied just to be playing at the highest level.
Yeah, we took a lot out of it. Still a test match we played against the opposition, who obviously didn't have a great game. But they're still a class unit who played well in recent times, and let's not be too hard on them. They did run into a really quality bowling attack.
The stand-in skipper believes that day-night cricket has a part to play in international cricket, but admits that the pink ball under lights has its challenges.
I think there's definitely room for day-night test cricket. It's very exciting. We love playing it. It's just a mindset and an awareness of knowing exactly what times are a little bit more difficult to bat on, which is not.
Many will argue that the occasion warranted more competitive opposition that would have ensured the match went the distance or at least guaranteed a proper contest. But despite the one-sided clash in PE, the excitement around the format certainly brought the crowds to the stadium and proved that there is indeed an appetite for pink ball test cricket, even though the match failed to get past the main course. CS Du Plessis, CGTN, Johannesburg.
We'll be back with more international stories right after this break. Don't go away.
This December, come and have a fun-filled season at the Q City. Q City has a whole lot of fun activities for kids and adults. Kids' indoor and outdoor play areas are open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Mondays to Thursdays and on Friday, Saturday and Sundays. It's the holiday season, so come and make the best of it at the Q City Recreation Center. The newly opened Q City with movie theatre, fast food restaurant, leisure and Olympic pools and many other sports and fun activities is open for you. Come and have some fun. Call 333-Q-City 3372489 or visit www.qcity.gm. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, Q-City Gambia, to get the latest updates. Q-City is the place to be with family and friends this holiday season. Q-City, hotel, leisure, sports and restaurants.
Welcome back. Ex-footballer George Weah will be sworn in as President of Liberia on January 15, 2018. Just about everybody agrees he faces a monumental task ahead in solving the many challenges faced by one of the poorest countries in the world. But there is one place in the country whose faith in the former footballer is absolute. CGTN's Robert Nagila has that story.
Ask anyone in Claratown who they voted for.
George Weah. I voted, my husband voted, my children, even my neighbor in the house voted for him.
It is here, in this sprawling neighborhood, a young George Weah spent his formative years.
Anywhere we go, I mean the crowd will just like his business.
53-year-old Renam Gaba grew up and played football with Weah in the 80s. He says Weah's raw talent was already on display back then. But it is his concern for others that endeared him to many.
For me, myself get confidence in him because from youth days, you're a man who like to share. You know, especially when we're having problems, at the time we're in Sofa, we're having problems, you're always championing the cause.
And he will need that side of him to solve the country's many challenges. Like many towns in Liberia, Claratown has no running water, no sewer system, and many of the children here do not go to school.
The tunnel system is very poor, and we experience flood during the rainy season. That's a very major challenge that we have in the community.
Few government services are available. Many have no access to health care.
Talk to anyone in this community and they're absolutely ecstatic that one of their own is about to be the next president of Liberia. Now, we managed to track down his grandmother's house, that is it, but we are told that George Ware himself spent many a night in this one-bedroom house.
The house was owned by my late grandmother, the woman George Ware, Emma Brown, Gion Boy, calling Gion Boy to sleep here. They were all in this room together.
More than 80% of Liberia's population live in extreme poverty. Many here believe, because of Ware's humble upbringing, he understands the plight of most Liberians better than the elite politicians.
On behalf of the Board of Commissioners, do hereby declare the presidential ticket of Senator George Manneh Ware and Joel Howard Taylor as the winner.
As he prepares to take over the reins from outgoing President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, his childhood friend has a message.
Right now, the expectation is too much. The expectation. So he got to really entrust himself and know how to carry on his normal business.
Can the former three-time World Footballer of the Year transform his magic off the pitch as he once did on it? Here in Claratown, they're backing him to do just that. Robert Magela, CGTN, Monrovia, Liberia.
Elsewhere, for over a decade now, Somali and African Union troops backed by U.S. drones have managed to suppress the militant group Al-Shabaab, at least from the capital Mogadishu. But a recent bombing in October proved the militant group remains a potent threat. CGTN's Abdul Aziz Bilo takes us through the uphill task Somalia's new president Mohamed Abdullahi is up against as he seeks to stabilize the Horn of Africa nation.
In February is one seen as a public quest for change in the country's top office. Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo defeated Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud in one of the most competitive elections in Somalia's modern-day history. But Farmajo inherited the same old challenges, chief among them Al-Shabaab.
My vision is to defeat Al-Shabaab within the next 2 years. That's the vision I would like to see happen within the next 2 years, to bring peace and stability in Somalia.
10 months into his term, Al-Shabaab has struck several times, including a deadly truck bomb on October 14th in the KM5 junction, an attack that killed 500 people, with some still unaccounted for. The attack is by far the single most deadly attack to ever rock Somalia. A few days after that attack, President Farmajo declared a state of war and traveled to countries contributing troops to the African Union mission to seek support in his upcoming offensive. And earlier this month, Mogadishu held a major security conference that brought together international actors.
I'm confident that together we will disrupt, dismantle and defeat the terrorists. We will return full control of all Somali's territories to the legitimate state and its people. We as a government are absolutely determined to win the war against Al-Shabaab and ISIS with a strong commitment and support of our valued international partners.
Security experts, however, say that the current strategy has failed and needs to be reviewed.
It requires change of method. What has been in place doesn't work. What has been in place for the Americans, for the Somalis, for even Amazon, it just were reacting and was just a push. It was a conventional war. And fighting a terrorism doesn't need a conventional war. But the current strategy where the Americans and Somalis, it failed.
Washington has so far carried out 32 aerial strikes this year, killing hundreds of militants, but at the same time displacing hundreds of civilians, mainly in southern Somalia. It has also struck ISIL bases north of the country. hoping to dismantle the group that's losing in Syria and Iraq. In mid-December, an Al-Shabaab suicide bomber targeted a police parade, killing 18 officers, in an attack that comes as AMISOM begins its gradual exit from the country.
Can AMISOM leave in time? Can AMISOM still remain in Somalia? Is it possible Somalia to take over their responsibility as a security in this country, as a full functioning authority? I think there's a huge question on air which need to be answered. And I think Somalia need to do something better. Somali government is absolutely dragging its feet towards being a capable authority in this country.
The government here argues that it has made much progress on the security front. Here in the capital, Mogadishu, a special task force has been established that has helped reduce the number of attacks here in Mogadishu. But the group's ever-increasing tactics has proved a major challenge to government forces, who, despite immense challenges, remain on the forefront in fighting Africa's deadliest militant group. Abdul Aziz Bilon, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
And that wraps up this edition of the news. But before we go, a recap of the top stories once again. President Barrow has expressed gratitude to Gambians for their sacrifice in ridding the country of dictatorship, and this was contained in the president's New Year message. Church leaders have dilated on various topical issues as they address the flock on the eve of a new year. Liberia's President-elect George Weah is set to be sworn in on January 15th. Authorities in Somalia intensify the war against Al-Shabaab group, but can President Farmajo's government is struggling to deliver a knockout blow against the insurgent group.